Hello. Welcome to this webinar on biomanufacturing, arranged by Joan Popolo from Action Innovation Network. And Action is a member of Twins International Multihelix team. My name is Ursula Hult-Bengtsson, and I'm the founder and CEO of the company Multihelix, the home of TIM. TIM is not for profit. It's an international organization based in Lund, Sweden, that brings together life science parks and clusters in North America, Europe, and Asia. It facilitates collaboration and partnering opportunities. Members complement each other instead of competing. Team members represent Sweden, Wales, Spain, Belgium, Slovenia, Japan, Hong Kong, Canada, and US. The network have about 1,500 companies, 65 universities, and 130 hospitals as potential collaboration opportunities. The areas of common interest of TIM partners are around digital health, living labs, personalized medicine and diagnosis, biomanufacturing, as we will talk about today, and soft landing opportunities, and of course, networking and cross-border partnerships to support the growing life science sector internationally. The value of TIM is related to access to highly innovative and entrepreneurial environments, including, for example, researchers, talents, key opinion leaders, consultancy services, infrastructure, and to give visibility to members on an international arena, as we do today. We are organizing a series of webinars for the benefit of the TIM partners and members and their networks. And the next webinar will be on the 1st September, highlighting the digital health ecosystem in Japan. So now I would like to hand over to Joan, who will guide us through this exciting webinar. And I would also take the opportunity to thank you, Joan, for arranging this webinar. It's a lot of work, and I'm really grateful that you have done this work for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ursula. Just a little bit about our organization. I serve as Executive Director at Action Innovation Network. For any of you who are not familiar with us, we're a nonprofit association of technology business incubators and other entrepreneur support organizations throughout the New England region of the US. About 2/3 of our incubator members support life science companies, but we also serve the sectors of clean tech, advanced materials, robotics, ocean and maritime, and aerospace. And recently, over the past 3 years, grant funding from the US Economic Development Administration has enabled us to build programs for international companies looking to enter the US market, which is one of the reasons we became a member of TIM to build and enhance our cross-border relationships. So there was interest in TIM members to hold a webinar on the topic of biomanufacturing. So I'm happy to present this panel to you to tell you about some new things happening in Massachusetts, as well as options and solutions for biomanufacturing that are being explored around Quebec. We should have 15 minutes at the end of this presentation for questions. So please enter any questions you have into the chat box, and we'll address those at the end of the session. So there has been a massive amount of life science funding from the NIH, National Institutes of Health, and private venture capital, which has created a growing pipeline of early stage drug development and therapeutics companies. As they mature, there will be an increasing demand for expansion of and biomanufacturing space. The panel today will provide insight on what's planned for the Massachusetts and Quebec regions, and we can open a discussion after that. So I'd like to start by having Ben Bradford, who's from MassBio, provide an overview of what's happening in Massachusetts. So Ben, why don't you go right ahead?
How's that? Everyone can see?
Yes.
All right. Joan, thank you very much for having us. We're happy to be here. I'll give a quick overview of what's happening in Massachusetts as it relates to the entire life sciences ecosystem. And then I'll kind of wrap up with the biomanufacturing piece, which will flow nicely into the rest of the group's presentations. So my name is Ben Bradford. I'm Vice President of Membership and Economic Development at MassBio. MassBio is the industry trade association representing 1,400 organizations. 1,000 of these organizations are life sciences companies. And as Joan mentioned earlier, we see a lot of early stage companies here in Massachusetts. 50% of our members have fewer than 50 employees. And a lot of our members are residing at Lab Central, where Selena's from, and at MBI, where John Weaver's from. So it's going to give kind of an overview of what we're all doing and how we're all working as one ecosystem here. So this is Kendall Square, kind of the heart, or what has been the heart of the life sciences industry in Massachusetts. On the left-hand side, you see the 1980s. On the right-hand side, you see the, let's call it early 2000s. And who has filled this space? This was intentionally built. It was a space that you didn't want to be in after dark in the 1980s, but now it is the heart of the life sciences world in the US. So who's here? As Joan mentioned, we're seeing a lot of venture capital. So this is going to early stage companies in Massachusetts who are really growing. 41% of all biopharma venture funding went to Massachusetts-based companies. That's great to see because these companies eventually grow. And we look at IPOs from just 2020 in Massachusetts, and we had 21 companies do public offerings here in the US. And these are the companies that are really starting to do manufacturing, but they're also attracting some of these larger companies to do business in Massachusetts and do some of their own manufacturing in Massachusetts. You look at Bayer and BI and BMS, they're all doing some little things in Massachusetts as it relates to manufacturing. So here are the largest companies that are working in Massachusetts. You get a sense of what's here. Vertex is manufacturing, Sanofi's doing some manufacturing, Biogen's doing some manufacturing. And this is the industry growth. So these are the number of employees working in the life sciences here in Massachusetts. And a significant portion of this is manufacturing talent. You can also see that we've added a significant amount of commercial lab space over the last 10 years, but we've also added a significant amount of manufacturing space. And over the next 5 years, we expect to add at least 2 million more square feet of manufacturing space in Massachusetts. And this is great because these are good paying jobs that are really helping build the economy of Massachusetts, supporting people from across the state, not just in Kendall Square, but out to Worcester, north of the city and south of the city. And how was it done? It was done really as a true partnership between academia, industry, and government. This is our former Governor Deval Patrick with our former CEO Bob Coughlin. And Governor Patrick had the wisdom and perhaps the bravery to invest $1 billion in the life sciences industry in 2008 during a global recession. But that is done a great job of making sure that Massachusetts is well positioned to continue to provide therapies and drugs to people across the world. So what we need to do now is take a look at how do we leverage that relationship of academia, industry, and government for opportunities over the next 5 years. These were the 4 core tenets of the MassBio 2025 report. And I'm really only going to focus on the last 2 because they really work well together. So we want to make sure that this is an ecosystem that is resilient to external shocks. That means bringing more manufacturing to Massachusetts. That means keeping manufacturing close to the R&D because there's less opportunity for things to get in the way. Now, that goes really well with continuing to support the expansion of the cluster outside of Boston and Cambridge. You may know this, but the Kendall Square has some of the most expensive rents in the world. If you're going to be building out a manufacturing site, it's going to be awfully expensive for that amount of square footage. But if you travel an hour west or north or south, there's significant opportunity to find space that's more affordable. And this is where kind of the MassBio Bio-Ready Communities program comes in. MassBio rates municipalities from bronze through platinum We're working on our database over the summer to make sure we have the right contacts, to make sure the information we have is correct. But you can see out of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, 84 are already rated by MassBio as at least bronze for hosting life sciences companies. And there's a number of municipalities that are not even rated because they don't check a few of the boxes, but they do a great job of supporting companies as well. So this is something we're continuing to work on. We're going to be taking a look and seeing if there's specific add-ons for manufacturing space that will be good to have. But as I mentioned, one of the things that these communities do have is they have a great workforce for manufacturing. The further you get outside of Boston and Cambridge, the more the workforce fits the manufacturing prototype. But that doesn't change the fact that there's going to be at least 6,000 new biomanufacturing jobs available in Massachusetts over the next 5 years. So what are we doing for workforce development? What's happening in Massachusetts? The Mass Life Sciences Center is the organization that was created by Governor Patrick. They've invested significant amounts of money into high schools and middle schools to make sure that the future of the workforce is learning at an early stage. They've also invested significant amounts of money at our community colleges and state colleges and universities to ensure that the more advanced learners are ready to start working as soon as they graduate. They also run what is many consider to be the biggest and best internship program in the US, reimbursing for internships up to $18 an hour. They placed 4,000 college interns at 750 companies across Massachusetts over the last 12 years. And this is a great way for folks to test out new employees, whether it's in manufacturing, whether it's in marketing, you name it. Our sister organization, MassBioEd, has a new biomanufacturing apprentice program that was launched for the first time this year. The first cohort started in June. You can see the companies that they are working with: Alnylam, Aranta, BMS, Mass Biologics, and Pfizer, all big companies here locally. They'll be taking classes at Northeastern and doing lab training over the summer, and they'll start their official jobs in October. There's a number of other programs and organizations that are working on workforce. John may be touching on the BETC out at WPI in Worcester, but something we need to be making sure we do is have everyone in the same conversation, whether it's industry, whether government, whether it's academia, to make sure that all of these initiatives are pulling in the same direction. Because Massachusetts has done a great job at making itself the best place for R&D, but we want to make sure it's also one of the best places for those companies that are doing R&D here in Massachusetts to do manufacturing. So it's great to see the continued VC funding. It's great to see the continued IPOs of early stage companies, because we know those are companies that will be considering doing manufacturing in short order. And those manufacturing jobs are really what's going to make Massachusetts a cohesive ecosystem from early stage R&D all the way through commercial manufacturing. And that's something that we're all striving to do. So that's the overview of MassBio and where we're seeing biomanufacturing go and what we're doing on the workforce side. But I look forward to conversations later and questions, but great to be here, and I look forward to hearing what everyone else has to say.
Thanks so much, Ben. That gives us a great opportunity to segue right into what John is going to talk to us about today, and that is what's happening beyond Boston and Cambridge, especially out his way in Worcester, Massachusetts. So John, are you able to share your screen, or do I need to give you privileges?
It says disabled screen sharing, so if you can help me out there, Joan, we'll get it going.
Okay.
While you're doing that, though, I guess I just start by saying I'm excited to see the TIM partnership. I think one of the things that makes Massachusetts so strong is the fact that collaboration, participation, all these things are so important here in Mass, as evidenced by the fact that folks like Ben and the great work that's happening at Lab Central with Selena and her team as well. It's really an ecosystem that's being built, and that's what I think really empowers the industry here in Massachusetts and makes it so strong. So really excited to see those partnerships happening globally, because we're really still at our infancy here in the industry, and we've got a lot of room for growth. So MBI is the state's longest running biotech incubator. We were founded in 1985, from the early picture that Ben showed of Cambridge, kind of the early days of biotech, and currently support over 168 companies, but we're focused have supported over 168 companies. We're focused on three main areas: incubating early stage companies, promoting the regional economic development of the biotech cluster, and also on our increasing diversity in STEM workforce initiative. Those are really the areas that MBI is focused in operating in. As I mentioned, as an incubator, we're currently home to 58 companies. We have well over 100 graduate companies. Our companies, through the pandemic, hired over 50 people in the last year. So we've really seen some significant growth in the industry despite the pandemic. And those companies have been successful in fundraising as well. As Ben indicated, Massachusetts is a place to access capital. Our graduates are all over the Commonwealth and really all over the world. But graduates of MBI, largely stay in Massachusetts. About 90% of them do, and they go all the way throughout the Commonwealth. And just to give you a sense of where we're located, MBI is located in Worcester, Massachusetts. So we're located about 50 miles west of Boston, in a community that has some really great academic resources. As Ben indicated, WPI, the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, has an amazing bioengineering program. They have one of the only biomanufacturing training centers on the East Coast was in place before the biomanufacturing boom came and is really well positioned to help support it. Home to one of the biggest companies, AbbVie, that developed Humira, the world's largest selling biologic. And we're now really focused on our place as a important part of the cluster, and how do we complement the success of the region with the advantages that we have on our part of it versus some of the challenges they have on the eastern part of it. So how do we all work together to support the ecosystem's long-term growth? I put the analogy on here of this biomedical corridor from Worcester to Cambridge that we highlight is roughly the same distance as the distance from San Jose to San Francisco, which is the widely known Silicon Valley on the West Coast. So we're really trying to create the same type of environment here, where there's a thriving ecosystem that goes throughout that entire region. Each part of the ecosystem plays a critical and important supporting role in making sure that the entire ecosystem operates healthily. We're here today to really talk about biomanufacturing, and one of the stats that Ben and MassBio cite a lot is that there's over 1,000 molecules in clinical development. As those molecules start to shift into phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials, there's going to be more and more of a need for manufacturing, and really more and more of a need for manufacturing locally due to the complexity of biologics and the opportunity cost of failure. So there's really more of a need than ever to do that manufacturing locally. So we tried to say, hey, this is a role that Worcester could play. We have the availability of space. We have the reduced cost that is also attractive to the industry. And we have a collaborative ecosystem where we can provide connections with the UMass Medical School and WPI and other training centers to really create a good environment for the manufacturing industry to excel. So in 2015, we started a really collaborative effort that we called the Worcester Biomanufacturing Initiative, based off a white paper that said that there was 46 acres of land that was owned by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, right behind the AbbVie Bioresearch Center and the UMass Medical School, and our Worcester Biotech Park, that was really underutilized by the state. It was part of a former state hospital complex, and that land really had no use to the complex and was just sitting there fallow. So we built a coalition that led by the Lieutenant Governor and MBI that included MassBio, our Massachusetts Life Science Center, as well as a bunch of state and local officials, that ended up converting that 46 acres to be what we now call the Reactory, which is Worcester's Biomanufacturing Park. In the last year, the first 2 buildings broke ground on the site, which the first one was Wuxi Biologics, who's building 100,000 square foot manufacturing facility that'll employ over 150 local employees. And we also had a developer called Galaxy Life Sciences, who's now taken over the balance of the park and has built the first building, is building the first building on spec to try to accommodate the industry and be able to get, provide them the speed to market that is really essential for the industry growth. So that's one way in which, you know, MBI and Worcester and our part of the ecosystem is really trying to support and complement the success of the cluster. Targeting this biomanufacturing sector that allows the R&D workhorses in Boston and Cambridge to continue doing what they do and have close proximity and access to the affordable space they need with the workforce that they need as well. The workforce piece I bring up, as Ben did, because it's just so critical. The industry is really driven by a couple of key factors. And I think speed and talent are probably the two biggest ones. In the biomanufacturing industry, those are the things that we continually hear over and over and over again. It's that we need to be able to get to market quickly because the drug development process is so long. We need to be able to shorten that and not be waiting on real estate. And second, it's that we need the talent that allows us to thrive. So we've been focused on this as Ben and the team at MassBio have, and I know the folks at Lab Central have a great program as well in this. So we started early in trying to identify kids early on that may not have any exposure to STEM. So trying to find them in middle schools and high schools and let them know that what science is, and that science is fun, and what those jobs and careers look like, so that they have some early exposure to the industry. And then recognizing that a lot of the folks from the underrepresented populations we're trying to connect with have additional barriers that we need to help them overcome. So there's a bunch of ESL and other programs focused on trying to help support them to overcome those challenges and be able to access the industry. And then the final piece was, we said in our area, one of the pieces, we had great academic infrastructure, we have great workforce partners, but we found there wasn't a lot of collaboration and discussion between them. So one of the things we've started in the last several months is what we call our Worcester Biomanufacturing Initiative. And this is a program where we get our industry and our academic partners to sit down around a table, identify gaps, talk about their needs, and try to find ways to close them, so that we can help bridge the gap between the programs that the colleges are creating and the needs of the industry. And the key piece of this is it's critical for the industry to grow, but it's also it's just critical for creating opportunity for some of these students that have amazing potential, but really need to make that first connection into industry so that they can alter their trajectory for the rest of their life. So we're really excited about that program as well, and we think workforce is a critical component of seeing the ecosystem grow. With that, Joan, I'll turn it back.
Thanks so much, John. If you stop sharing your screen, we can move to Selena. And Selena is going to talk about what's going on with Lab Central. And if you see, I've started with sort of Ben with a broad overview, followed by John with a more regional overview. And now Selena will be on a more local basis. So Selena, you can launch right into your presentation. Thanks.
I can, as soon as you give me that.
I can do that.
All right. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right, so my name is Selena Chang. I am the VP of Science Operations and Strategic Relationships at Lab Central. A little bit about who we are. So Lab Central is a not-for-profit organization that is based in Massachusetts, and we are really here to help the highest potential biotech and small startup companies in the life sciences really focus on their science, hit their milestones, and get their science out there. And so we do this by providing operational support for these companies so that when they are starting, they can start with one person, two people. They can start within a few days of submitting all of their paperwork. But we do all the operational things for them so that they can really focus on working on their research, making sure that they are able to hit their milestones and really move forward very quickly. We also have a huge network of sponsors that the the entrepreneurs can connect with. And this is, you know, everything from big pharma to, you know, equipment manufacturers to legal firms, real estate, anyone that you can, that works within the industry of the biotech space is part of our ecosystem. And this is where we all collaborate to work together to get them to move forward much more quickly. We have a lot of space that is flexible so that they can grow and we really have a great networking area. We have grown exponentially over the last several years. We started up in 2013 with our main facility in Kendall Square. And in 2016, we expanded to another small facility partnering with the Harvard Business School. This is the Paluca Harvard Life Lab. And this is really for companies that are even earlier stage. So they're at seed stage, really concept. They're coming out of Harvard. They're really trying to see if their science can be something that can be a proven therapy or technology. In 2017, we opened up Lab Central 610, which is a graduate space. So companies that are within our borders really stay with us for 18 to 20 months. They are you know, hitting their milestones. They're bringing in lots of funding. They are growing their teams really quickly. And oftentimes the thing that is holding them back is that we're too small. And so we've developed these larger labs for them that they can still be within our ecosystem, but run much more independently. And what we are planning on doing is we're opening up another facility starting in November of this year. This is going to be Lab Central 238, and this is the building that is really focused on bioprocess leading to biomanufacturing, which is why we're here today. So just some more numbers here. You know, we over the 4 buildings that we will have, we could be hosting up to 110 companies simultaneously. We are these companies are, you know, growing really quickly. You've seen some of their logos already through some of the other presentations. But we'll have 200,000 square feet of shared office and lab space by mid next year. This is actually an old slide. I apologize, I didn't have time to get anything up to date, but this just really shows that the high potential of the companies that are coming into the Lab Central ecosystem. If you want to get more of the more recent numbers, you can go to our website and look at our impact reports. The 2020 impact report has been published. But essentially, what I want to say with this slide is that these companies are really, really high potential, right? So they are bringing in VC funds and investments at a rate that is, you know, essentially we're the 4th largest state in the United States. Lab Central is, which is really kind of mind-boggling. But these companies are coming up with really amazing new technologies, therapeutics, diagnostics, new tools, research tools, things that are accelerating science at an exponential rate. And so this is really why we've started to look into to building a space for biomanufacturing. We're seeing that therapeutics and drugs are really, small molecules are only about 1/3 of what is coming through the pipeline these days. The therapeutics now are much more complex. They're you know, built with you know, large proteins, antibodies, you know, combinations of antibodies and drug payloads, and you know, just the ability to really target the areas of disease and interest because of genetic engineering and the advances that are being made in science now. Things are just so much more complex and really accelerating. So it's really important for these companies to be able to invest early in process development. So what happens is a lot of these companies that are coming through academia, have really great science. They understand their proteins, they understand exactly what's happening in their disease model. But if they're not actually working on the process development stages of their company early enough, they are just essentially wasting time and money, because this is not what will bring that science to market, right? So we need to be able to give these companies the ability to move from academic science and research into product development. And again, as both Ben and John have talked about, manufacturing requires lots of space and lots of capacity. This is not something that we can do in Cambridge, in the heart of the city. It's just not physically possible. But what we can do is give them that technology at a small scale and enable them to start working on these processes much, much earlier in their stage of their company's life. So they're working on cell line development, technology, the delivery technologies, capsid and vector selection, and really de-risking all of those things. The big pharma companies are not doing novel R&D anymore. They've shifted all of that away because they're seeing that biotech is really much more nimble, innovative, faster. They are now investing, millions of dollars into seeking out who has the best technologies and actually, working with them at an early stage and then eventually acquiring them. So for big pharmas, they really want to see that the science and this work is de-risked. And in order to do that, these companies need to be working on this process development much faster. So this is just a snapshot of some of the companies that have come through either our current residents at Lab Central or their alumni. But you can see that most of these companies, we have gene therapy, cell therapy, we have combinations, we have ADCs, we have, bispecific antibodies. So the amount of technology that is really combinatorial now is really growing exponentially. And so some of the common challenges that we're seeing are that, again, these companies that are coming through from academic sources, they're not starting their process development work early enough. So we want to enable them with that knowledge and the technology that they need in order to do that. Tech transfer of these complex manufacturing processes is really difficult and time consuming. These companies spend a lot of time, essentially transferring this technology to a CRO or CMO when they are able to get there. There are long lines at CMOs because availability is really scarce. We're seeing that, again, because of the rapid growth of scientific breakthroughs with genetic engineering and more specific targeting. A lot of these biotechs and small companies and really interesting therapeutics are coming through and starting to mature. We have a bolus of companies that are ready to move into process development and into manufacturing, but we don't have enough capacity within the CMO space. Which is why biomanufacturing is growing at such huge rates. There's also, this difficulty of tech transfer, when there are failed batches, within the CMO spaces. There's a lack of control for these companies because they are not there, right? A lot of these manufacturing companies are, across the world or across the country or even, just a couple states away. If you're not there physically, then it really causes a lot of downtime. It's just traveling back and forth and trying to make sure that you are in constant contact with the CMO. And in addition to that, the contract manufacturers, technology, they are using technology that it really hasn't been made more efficient. This is still technology that has been developed in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. the advances in that technology has really been lackluster, right, compared to the genetic engineering and the specific proteins that people are working on. So that research, and so because of that, the manufacturing itself is still inefficient. There can be a lot of advances made there. And so what are we doing? So Lab Central is trying to empower companies through our new space at Lab Central 238 to work on all of these areas: upstream PDs, downstream PD, their QC assays, analytical characterization, and possibly fill finish and formulation. So the final part of working to create this drug product. We're hoping to prepare them for transferring their technology to CMOs or bringing this technology in-house themselves so that they can have more control over this. And we're hoping to create this hub for partnerships. So really convening together all the people who are experts in the space with the technology that needs to be developed so that there can be really clear collaborations that are happening within our space. And we also have this, this vision for building a workforce and talent, and with STEM education and biomanufacturing. And unfortunately, I don't have a good slide for that right now, but you can check out Lab Central Ignite, which is a new initiative that we've really kicked off this year. It's been really amazing. And again, we are doing this through the collaboration and the convening of both, of industry and government and academia. As has been said before, this ecosystem within the Massachusetts life sciences community is really strong, very powerful, and it continues to grow. And it's great to see that this is being expanded across the world. That's it for what I have.
Thank you so much, Selena. That was great. Which is going to move us to Martine now. And Martine, please do give us an overview of what's going on in your region around Quebec, what you're exploring for Sherbrooke in Nepal, and more. So you're on. Do you have slides? Yes.
Can you give me the controls so I can share?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I can make it. Okay. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'm just put it in the mode of the program. Just a second. Okay, should be a little bit easier for so. Thank you all. My name is Martine Courtemanche. I'm the director of life science and micro nanotechnology at Sherbrooke, Nepal. Thank you for having us. I know that I'm a little bit outside the bug of US, so just give you a little bit of sense where Sherbrooke is we're not far from the US border. We're close to Boston, obviously, or Cambridge area. Sherbrooke is the second most entrepreneurial community in Canada, and one thing we have done to support that with Sherbrooke, Nepal, which is the economic arm of the city, we did a lot of different either support or activity and initiative, and two that I'd like to highlight right now. Obviously, it's linked to money. We have seen that a lot of pre-seed challenges for company to really, I would say, the started up. So we have a venture capital arm within Sherbrooke, Nepal. So we do invest, and every dollar we invest, it's really a high return of more than $72. So basically, we're really helping innovation from the university to move in the entrepreneurial approach. That's one of the initiatives, so that we were really sure that the company can have a lot of active access to money for pre-seed. And also one thing we have done, and it's Espace Lab, which is linked to a multi-tenor center for private and office, obviously, to help these companies to start and eventually to grow. Having said these two key initiative or infrastructure that we did. Just maybe talking about the biomanufacturing, obviously, world or market. Obviously, US is dominating the availability of the capacity. So the Northeast and Southwest are the two key ones. But if you go down a little bit, US and Central and Southeast are adding up. So basically, the US is really worldwide, is having a high volume of manufacturing. Canada is it's around 3.6. So obviously, we can make sure that we need to improve our approach and how we can maybe help not just Canadian company, but worldwide company when they come to North America. We could be a good door to open the market to the North America. Having said that, just a little bit of key things to see and to say that obviously mammalian cell culture still dominate the market increase. It's, I would say, basically close to 80%, and it's growing. So basically this is really interesting, but the one thing to remember is gene therapy is getting more and more involved. So we can see there's a trend here. On the right side, there's a different trends of the blue is the mammalian cell culture through the years. Fermentation went a little bit down, but the key thing is the gene therapy basically just jumped out in 2017. So we can see that there's a lot of activity linked to biomanufacturing. And if we go to this, to the left, last graph, this is the different industry. The CRO is the second one here, but as you can see, the best multiple, it's really the CDMO world, which is very interesting and still growing. So just say this is really like my distinct colleague talk about what's going on in the growth. The number are there and the industry is getting stronger and stronger. And obviously, for all these pharma that is building, well, there's challenges. So what we have done at Sherbrooke, this is one of the section of rebuilding that everything around the same region. And as you can see, there's still some greens, but the good thing is Sherbrooke, we're really building facility and closeness to the people for the research. So we have at the same time the hospital, we have the Center of Research, you have the Pharmacology Institute, the Cancer Research, and Espace Lab was here at the bottom. We have other company, like for example, for this picture, we can see Charles River, but we have other companies that do preclinical and clinical. So just letting you know that what we're building is really on closeness so that everyone can easily talk to each other and to create collaboration. And obviously that's a little bit that we had one space lab that we've been working and having a company growing, and they need, like you have done in Boston, you have a second building for the graduation of these company. And what we've done is basically now we're working on the second one, but we're going to do a 2-in-1 in the sense that we want to integrate, yes, to graduate the company, but at the same time already have some development center for biomanufacturing and one major one, and also training with university so that it's all together. So physically, we can speed up a little bit the approach, and instead of do it in 2 steps, try to really create that center of excellence in 1 step so we can go a little bit faster and address obviously the lack of capacity of CMO that Selena just mentioned, but also all of us that we have seen in the industry. There's really a major shortage of capacity worldwide, independent of the technology or the system used to develop these new molecules. Just one thing that has been really, it's everything linked to small batch is challenging, that was mentioned. Obviously, everything with data science is very important, and a combination of web labs. So that's what we're trying to do here with our new project. One thing to remember is that a lot of things is linked to big data. And one thing I like to highlight is we have a quantum really hub in Sherbrooke. And basically it's going to help really to foster the new drug or the following of the application of these new molecules. So right now we really have more than 200 people in quantic ecosystem in Sherbrooke. And we're getting traction by pharma because they know that some of the solution or the difficult, complex problem will be probably helped to be resolved by the quantic. So, or I should say quantum, I'm sorry, just use the French name. So we have basically already a great hub for the quantum to support everything linked to development. So to try to speed up and obviously to find the best target and also the best molecule that could be successful in finding solution for patient. So basically that's very quickly because I wanted people to have the chance to have a discussion, but to give you a little bit of sense of our agile, and even if we're a little smaller, we're still very agile and try to be really pragmatic and finding solution for our biotech, developing the new molecule of the future. So I'll stop here. So I'll give you back, stop sharing. So, or maybe you can just take back. So I don't know if I do that. Oh, I just find it. So it should be fine again. So
There we are.
it was a short and sweet one, but I wanted to, since a lot of people talk about the market, all the issue challenge is exactly the same. So I didn't want to repeat that. So thank you again for your time and hope to have a chance to see you in Sherbrooke.
I messed up a little bit there. Sorry about that. Thank you, Martine. I think this was great. I think this was just the kind of information we wanted to pull out from our panelists for this discussion. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but the first thing I'd like to ask Martine is about your workforce development. Several others have mentioned how they're training for the pipeline of new companies that are coming out. Are you seeing that problem, or are you anticipating that problem and are looking for solutions to that? Can you speak a little more on that?
Yes, we are. At the same time, we have some initiative also at the same time for the biomanufacturing. We have special at the college level. One thing we're doing also at the same time in parallel is linked to quantum. So we have also a link to the biopharmaceutical / quantum data that we have a bachelor degree that has been done. And also there's a master's and PhD linked to that. So it's going to be a combination of trying to really build both in the sense of we do have already some great school and experienced people, but we want to build again linked to the quantum at the same time to find solution for the pharma and the biotech at the same time. So yes, we do. And we have expertise in mostly the mammalian cell, but we're building more and more the other that is going to be the future for gene therapy. So yes, we are, and it's a challenge because it takes years. So that's something that I really see that the Cambridge, Boston. I'm glad that everybody's seem to go in the same direction. It's going to help each other, I think, to find the right people and find solution for the health of the patient that we need to find solution.
The other thing I recognized was from Selena, Martine, and also John, you've also been building out facilities for the expansion of these companies. So also another challenge that you've seen with the companies, they're wanting to expand, stay local where they are. So that's all a good thing too. Okay, here's a question from Ursula. And Ben, she'd like to address this to you. Supporting expansion outside of the original location, also internationally. Think about the thinking about the bio-ready communities. So I think maybe the question, Ursula, if you want to clarify that a little bit, or is it that beyond the bio-ready communities, are companies also looking for international expansion?
Exactly, that could be the case. But I'm also thinking about the support that Ben talked about. Could that support also reach out outside the US to, for example, the TIM member countries and so on? Is it only for US use?
So the support in terms of utilizing our Bio-Ready Communities program or helping companies expand, I guess, do you mind clarifying what sort of support you mean?
Well, the support for the growing life science sector also in biomanufacturing, training programs that could be used for people coming from abroad and then go back home again, and all that kind of international collaboration.
Yeah, I think that absolutely there's opportunity there. You know, a lot of the money that is used for the workforce development programs is state funded. So I think our governor would have a little bit of trouble getting funding if he was just training people who are going to end up leaving Massachusetts. But I think that, you know, our great private colleges and universities here have, you know, programs that are outstanding at educating people in what it takes to be in the biomanufacturing space. UMass Lowell's jumping to mind right now. State College north of Boston is really making a name for itself there. So I think there are opportunities. Certainly there's opportunities for international companies to, if they have a location in Massachusetts, to utilize all of the programs, whether it's Mass Bio programs, Mass Bio Ed programs, the BETC, or the Mass Life Sciences Center. Those are all available if a company has one person and an address in Massachusetts.
Okay, so that's the trick, to have one person and an address. Okay.
That is the trick.
That is the trick. And that's kind of what we like to offer in action in our international programs. As I probably described to you before, we have these international cohorts that come over, and we introduce them to the players in the region, including the incubators, that would be able to offer them space on either a short-term basis or some agreed upon basis, to be able to have a US address as they're trying to tap some of these other resources. So, and this is sort of what we want to do for the whole of TIM, right? Is to expose all of the assets that we all have and try to build ways that we can share them among the TIM network. So these are all good things. And Martine being so close in Canada, and it makes sense that we look at opportunities to do something more closely as well.
And I'd just say, I think Joan's doing an awesome job with her soft landing program, where she helps companies develop a presence in the United States. And in partnership with that, at MBI and a lot of the other incubators, we've come up with some soft landing programs that make it easier for companies to operate on 2 continents without having a lot of infrastructure or other challenges. So I think in many cases, the question might be and both, where a company that continues their operations in Sweden, but they may have a presence here in the US so that they can access and take advantage of the the best parts of both markets. So something to think about there. And Martine, I guess to your point earlier, I'd just quickly say, MBI and Mass Bio, we're trying to promote biotech in the 80s. And our development here in Worcester started off very similar to yours. We had the state had just placed our medical center, the University of Massachusetts Medical Center here in Worcester, and the community wanted to say, how do we leverage that? How do we take advantage of it? So we started building a biotech park. It started with 1 building. It's now over 1 million square feet. And the challenge we have now is that, we've run out of space and we have to, create new buildings and continue to expand. So that was at a time when the industry was really in its infancy, and now it's at a time where it's starting to reach maturity. So I think that growth would happen a lot faster. But I think they're similar models, similar pathways, and early on it can be hard to measure success, but I think you're going to see it come. So.
Oh, thank you. Well, we hope, and at the same time, I also say to people, sometimes could be a stepwise approach for some European colleague that sometimes could be a little bit challenging to have a presence right away in US, and Canada could be a stepwise approach since we're so close to the border. Or it could be a combination of both. There's some advantage, obviously, with tax credit and Canadian dollars. So if for some reason it needs to be a little more a stepwise approach, maybe we can be one of the steps for North America. So it could be something that sometimes, yes, you want to be close to the big, to the Cambridge, Boston area, but sometimes you need to take a stepwise, and that's where maybe there's an opportunity for us in Sherbrooke to open the door for that, for some company that could be a little bit more challenging to jump right away in the US. So that's something that we can maybe help them then to move to Boston as a second step, or in the new area. So that's, it's not one against each other. I think it could just be one step different to approach it, especially for European country or European company that may not have as much money initially, or how much depth that they may need, and they may need to go a little bit smaller. And maybe we can offer that opportunity for some of them. So if you're missing space, we don't. So by the way, we have a lot of space in Sherbrooke. So that's all I'm saying. And it's just sometimes just a stepwise approach, and see us as a potential partner for some project, maybe not all, but for some, maybe we can be useful and bring European country in North America. And it could be a little bit de-risking the approach if they do stepwise and come in Canada first, for different culture, dollar value, and then to meet and to know more about the US Big Brother at the same time. So
We love Canada.
we lovely people. So could be like I said, stepwise approach for some, not all, but I really strongly believe with the quantum, that's where you can have a special group that you need to have expert group that you need to build and to be close to the quantum solution. But maybe some other part of their expansion could be in US for the other group. So I think it could be, we could offer a solution, especially with the quantum. So maybe it's one solution is basically in 2 locations for some of the different group that within the company that needs to be close to science and data at the same time. So I don't know if for some European colleague that seems to be on the call, that could be something that they want to explore eventually, or something that obviously with all of you, Ben, John, and Selena, that maybe we can have for some customer an approach that is more North America approach, and how we can help a company to establish and really make a difference with the quantum solution eventually.
I think if the last year showed us anything, it's that biotech is a global challenge and requires global collaborations. Things like Pfizer BioNTech were part of the leading edge of helping the globe move on from probably one of its greatest challenges. So I would agree.
I certainly want to have a chance for anyone who's on the call who has a question for anybody to please just speak up now. Just unmute yourself and speak up. That would be great. Otherwise, I do have a question for Selena. I wondered, as you were talking, if you could go into a little more detail on.
She did great. They're in the Q&A now.
Oops. Hi, Maggie.
I'm so sorry. I thought I was on mute.
Hi, Maggie. Just anyone speak up who'd like to. But I was asking Selena if she could go into a little more detail on how that partnership came together for your new biomanufacturing space. How long were you in the planning for that? And how did you bring those partners together to make that happen?
Yeah, we've been planning this build out for several years now. We started concept probably about 2.5 years ago. And that was really through discussion with the state of Massachusetts, that, with their initiatives for biomanufacturing and for bioworkforce trading. They wanted us to actually partner with them to build a biomanufacturing production facility that is just not in our wheelhouse. And so, but we did start really considering, you know, how we could plug into this whole train of what is needed for biomanufacturing. And so that's where we came up with this idea about bioprocess, you know, and really bringing this earlier to the companies and education and things like that. We were also talking, you know, very strategically with MIT, you know, who's a big landowner in Kendall Square, and just, you know, trying to figure out where the best place for this would be, and then just really going out to our industry partners to see who would partner with us, and so Astellas Pharma came on very early on as one of our founding sponsors, you know, who really sees the vision of what we're trying to do in order to bridge that gap between research and manufacturing. And so it's just been years of discussions and ideas and kicking things around and modifying our plans, and now it's, you know, we're so close. We're right there at the finish line.
Oh, that's great. Well, I think we are at time now, so we should probably close out this webinar. But I thank everyone for joining us this morning. I hope you got a lot of information from it, and it's nice that you all meet each other anyway. So with that, I want you to have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was great.